Here's what you're missing over at patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg, Spotlight On. And today we are talking with a friend of ours who you know as Fran Fiak. And you've heard him on many episodes, often with Rick Schroeder, who I don't know if when this comes out, when his will come out, but we've done a Spotlight On for now both of them. And we talk often about the medical aspect of the Civil War and the Battle of Gettysburg, et cetera, et cetera. And so today we're going to talk about Fran with Fran. Hello, Fran.
How are you, sir? Thanks for having me.
How are you? So, Fran, let's see. I always like to start in the beginning with these things. And so where were you born?
Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
The site of the flood.
The site of the flood. That's,
Which one?
Joe Goldsberry. Yeah, right.
The Johnstown flood.
Many Johnstown.
Yeah, there's more than one.
And actually, I was in the 77 Johnstown flood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. What was that like?
I was a volunteer fireman at the time, and we got called out for a building struck by lightning at like midnight. And that's the first time I stayed up for over 36 hours straight. It was the weirdest storm. It came in from the west, then it came in from the east, and it couldn't get out of the Johnstown Valley and just flooded the place. Saw two people die to their death in Franklin Borough. We were trying to get them out. We had an aerial truck, and I was very good at operating that thing. I could drop it on a quarter. We couldn't get them out till a Volkswagen bus, believe it or not, came through a parking lot and wiped them away.
Really?
Yeah. So 77 flood. Yeah.
Was it the same dike?
Johnstown sits it's just like Pittsburgh. There's three rivers that come together. The Little Conemaugh and the Stony Creek form the Conemaugh. And there's all types of reservoirs around, water reservoirs, and that's what happened. They just started to burst, and it was just a flash flood. I will tell you one of the things for my friends in Johnstown. One of the coolest things I remember was that the day after the flood, when the sun came up, first of all, nobody believed the town was flooded. Water was probably about 10 feet in the town, and we're going into town trying to get people out. And their homes are destroyed. And I'll never forget going down Bedford Street. And the people, even though their homes were destroyed, were out there. Floodwaters do a weird thing under blacktop. They'll get underneath and then they burst out. So the whole road was just covered with these burst things. And they were out there with shovels and wheelbarrows, and they were making a pathway for the ambulances.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and their homes, we're looking at their homes are destroyed, and they're out there going, go ahead, we're getting the road fixed for you. Just amazing Cambria County stuff.
I was going to say that's a rural attitude, right? We're all in it together.
We'll
type
get it
of
out
thing.
here.
We'll pull it together. Yeah. So you grew up there. You still live there now? You don't live there now.
No. Actually, it'll be 5 years. The hospital I worked for was bought out, and after 2 years, they decided they didn't need my level of expertise. And at one time, I was really angry, but it's the best thing that happened to me. Got me here to Gettysburg. My wife works in State College. She's still working. She is an assistant athletic director at Penn State University. She does all the human resources stuff for intercollegiate athletics.
Okay, very good.
So we're up there, and it's a 2-hour drive between here and...
So you come here, like every weekend to guide, or...?
I have an apartment here. Yeah. So we have apartments, so I have a Gettysburg address.
Right.
And this is like the time of the year. Yeah, I don't want to step on any patent infringement. Fran's Gettysburg address. But, we come down here, and guiding season is usually pretty busy mid-March to July. So I'm down here a lot, and then after that, we just come down, and when I want to do stuff or get special requests or to do stuff with Rick, we do a lot of weird and unusual medical stuff, so sometimes we'll come down and do that. Keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah. Do you plan to move here eventually?
No, we're going to stay in State College. That was our action plan, to retire to State College, so it pushed us 5 years forward. I have to be honest with you, it's a cool place in the winter. I've been to fencing. Have you ever gone to a fencing meet?
No.
It is It is an amazing thing. Indoor track. Believe it or not, men and women's gymnastics is really an exciting thing to watch. So in State College, we just say, "What's going on tonight?" "Oh, volleyball. Let's go." Tickets for $5, and we go. It's I don't know. Johnstown is a great place, but it's a rusting steel mill town. Mm-hmm. And when Jeopardy's over at 7:30, they unplug all the lights. At State College, things are just, you can feel it. There's a
Well, you got
there.
the college.
Yeah, and like I've been to rugby. What's the one with the wicket? Lacrosse.
Yeah.
Lacrosse is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Lacrosse is crazy. And it's fun to watch. So that's kind of entertaining ourselves.
So, well, that's cool though. So I like living here because there's always something going on. And do you ever have a down season up there?
Usually November through February.
Okay.
But have you ever been to Penn State University Library?
No.
Because you live in Pennsylvania, you can go there. They have a collection of books called The Stacks, and the second floor, the whole left side, is all Civil War.
Oh, really?
Books you've never seen. Like
really?
You go in there and go, "Oh my God, there's a 21 journal on artillery in this," And,
really?
Yeah. So I've been up there. Jerry Hahn came up and goes, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
And there's just stuff up there, and they have a paper collection. I forget what it's called, but you can get online. And like I held the dedication program for the 142nd Pennsylvania.
Wow.
They collect paper.
Yeah.
So you can get in and hit Civil War and they'll bring it out.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of
And what, as a Pennsylvania resident, you can use the library?
Yeah, you get a library card. Even Jerry got one. If there's something you want, they'll send it to your local Penn State university.
Yeah.
And you can have it. And it's 2 months, and she said up to 4 months. I said, "What if I want the ORs?" She said, "If it's up there, we'll send it to you."
Wow.
So it's an amazing resource that I'm just beginning to uncover. Right
That's
now.
pretty neat.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Johnstown. When did you move away?
it's 5 years from now. So what was that? 2018.
2018 is when you moved away. So, okay. So not very long ago.
Not very long ago.
Okay. So then your whole life you were there in Johnstown.
Correct.
All right. So you were a volunteer firefighter at one point?
Volunteer firefighter, went away for school to become a nurse anesthetist, went to Altoona for nursing school, Reading for anesthesia school.
And why? What was the interest in anesthesia?
I have a mother who's a nurse anesthetist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you saw her.
Mm-hmm. She took me to work with her once when I was a little kid. And I liked what she did. And it was one of those things in 1975 or 76, a guy wanting to be a nurse was looked down upon.
Sure.
And I think maybe I disappointed my dad a little. He wanted me to be some type of mechanical engineer, but I kind of liked that anesthesia part. And then I got involved in the fire department part and got to go on ambulance runs. And I just it fit me.
What is the difference? Because you said nurse anesthetist.
Correct.
What is the difference between that and an anesthesiologist?
An anesthesiologist is a doctor who specializes in anesthesia. A nurse anesthetist is a nurse who specializes in anesthesia. The only difference we tell people is zeros in their salary. Usually, the person staying with you, hours of boredom, moments of terror. Anybody can put you to sleep. They paid me to wake you up.
Right. So that's the trick.
We work as a team with the anesthesiologist, but there's a nurse anesthetist usually with you all the time. The anesthesiologist is watching 3 or 4 rooms, but we're in the room with you all the time.
I got it. So you would be, if Joe's getting an operation, you would be in the one there. You'd be the one administering all the drugs and monitoring him.
Correct.
And the anesthesiologist is bouncing between room and making sure everything's okay.
And if there's a problem or if it's a complex case, Rick and I worked at a level 1 trauma center, and just good hands and a bunch of people. Anesthesia has been equated to flying an airplane, and it's pattern recognition, small subtle changes in pattern. So when you have a pair of eyeballs looking, you see the heart rate go up 5 or 10 beats, and it mixed with the depth, more pressure on the ventilator, you go, I got to give him some fentanyl. And it's that type of deal. And the anesthesiologist and nurse anesthetist work together, but the nurse anesthetist is always with you in the room.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we're probably going to jump around here because you got me interested in this now. So, okay, so you and Rick met at work.
Right.
At the same hospital in Johnstown.
Correct.
And I assume that you were probably working on patients together.
Yeah, he was the new young buck orthopedic surgeon, trauma surgeon. Rick's specialty was putting recorrecting pelvises.
Yeah,
pelvis fractures are tough because they're 3-dimensional fractures, and he would look at a 2-dimensional X-ray. So I can't tell you that there'd be nights where we'd be working. Rick would be working on extremities. The neurosurgeon would be working on a head injury. They would be opening up the belly to take out spleen. So we'd get into these big cases, and usually Rick would stabilize stuff, and if we were going to continue to work, the other people would get out, and that's how Rick and I discovered we had this Gettysburg Civil War connection.
While operating on people?
Well,
you're talking?
I tell people all the time in an operating room, and they'll tell you, when people get quiet, something's going wrong.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing my job really well, it looks like I'm not doing anything.
Right.
Because everything is fine, and I'm looking, CRNAs have their head on a swivel. So we're looking at things, we're watching things going, we're hearing sounds of the pulse ox in the ventilator. And when I'm talking, things are okay. Yeah. It's when we get quiet. And the staff I used to work with said, I hate your Fran voice, because there'd be a voice I must have when under stress.
Okay.
And I could just remember one time saying to a nurse, I grabbed her by the shoulder and I said, if you don't go get me the blood, there'll be nothing to operate on in 5 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
She goes, I hate your voice. And ran out and got the blood. That type of stuff.
So it's like it's a calm, yet it's a calm way of
slapping you in the face.
Slapping you in the face, yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's a sense of urgency in your voice, but you're doing it in a very calm way.
Traumas, we'd go in for trauma alerts. Anesthesia's job, I never had a name. We were always anesthesia. And one of my tricks, and for my CRNA friends out there, I'm sorry, and for my trauma friends, I'd walk into the trauma room, and if you can imagine a sick patient, all banged up, they need an airway in them, and I'd walk into a trauma room, I'd go, anesthesia's here, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? And I'd start lowering my voice, and they'd go, what? But that's how I got control of the room.
Yeah. Well, they say that's a technique. If you want to, if you're having a negotiation or something, you start off talking quietly.
For your words.
Because now they have to pay attention. Yeah. There was an episode of The Office, and Michael tried to employ that when he was negotiating with Daryl's salary.
Yeah.
He lost. He couldn't do it right.
No idea.
So you guys were in the trauma unit, right?
We did a level 1 trauma center, but we did bread and butter cases too. I worked with Rick with total knees and hips and shoulders and GYN surgery and craniotomies, open hearts. I was hired down there to do open hearts. My anesthesia training, I was one of the first anesthesia trained nurse anesthetists in Johnstown. So.
And so there's a difference in anesthesia from procedure to procedure? Like if you're doing open hearts, that would be different than if you're fixing a pelvis, let's say?
Yeah, open heart, when I was starting to do it, remember, we would stop your heart.
Yeah.
We don't usually do that for other cases.
Yeah, right.
But for open hearts, you had to do it, and there was a higher level of monitoring. So like we would drop lines into your heart, stick needles into your arteries and stuff. That's Reading Hospital was one of those places that did it. And when it came to Johnstown, it was just coming up, and they had an open heart program, and I worked at the other competing hospital, but within 2 years, they said, why don't you come over here? So I guess I could tell you it's exciting. It's not fun. It's exciting. There's you get a rush out of being the only person in the room that can do that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
So
working on the traumatic cases, or the trauma cases, does that somehow, I mean, you've got to understand the Civil War or any kind of military, like battle wounds better when you read about them, because you're like, I've seen what trauma can do to a body, and these guys are going through trauma. Yeah. So that's got to help you in some way understand it more, right?
One of the things that I did in preparing to be a guide, if you ever read Civil War stuff, they never tell you what it's like to be under fire.
Yeah.
They'll give you onesies and twosies.
Right.
The bullets zipped by my ear. It whistled over my head. So I kept a note whenever I heard that. And anesthesia was the job of preventing your body from going crazy when adrenaline hits your system. So the only way anesthesia works is if somebody's hurting you. If I put you to sleep and nobody's cutting your abdomen open, you're going to die. Anesthesia is a drug overdose. It's a drug overdose.
Oh, but because of the adrenaline rush from the trauma of being cut.
So
holy shit.
I look how to see the adrenaline and use that to put you down. We only do 4 things in anesthesia. We make you amnestic so you don't remember. We make you pain-free with narcotics or blocks. We do reflex blocks. I mean,
so you don't twitch.
No, so your heart doesn't stop. If somebody touches your gut and you're not asleep, your heart will stop on a vagus nerve. And then we provide a surgical site for the surgeon.
Listen to the rest of this interview and dozens like it. Support the show and get early access to special episodes, early and discounted ticket sales, and more. The second lieutenant level and above gets access to all monthly Patreon episodes. So please go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg, choose a tier, and join. And I thank you in advance.